Vanessa, how's it going?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for interviewing and stuff and taking the time for me.
Yeah, no problem. It's definitely been a while. I think we last spoke on the awards show when you had the submission of the year. But how's everything been since then?
Everything's been awesome. Just fighting and doing training and punching stuff and kicking stuff and grappling. And, I love spending time at the beach. So I do a lot of that. So, yeah, it's a good life right now.
Mm-hmm. And are you at Saxon's Muay Thai right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I train at Saxon's Muay Thai, Black House MMA, One Jiu-Jitsu, and Jackrabbit Boxing.
Awesome. Oh, when did you make the transition to that gym?
I've been over at Saxon's for quite a while now, actually. Yeah. Coach Julio has cornered me for the last 4 fights that I've had. Yeah.
Gotcha. And before I get into everything else, I just wanted to talk about your Instagram. Unfortunately, you got it taken down. Do you know what the reasoning was behind that?
Well, they're saying that it's inappropriate content, but I didn't post anything that was so outlandish. I mean, okay. Look, I gotta take some ownership here.
That is BS.
Yeah, it's BS. My post probably wasn't super appropriate, but yeah, it definitely was too much for Instagram, apparently.
Man, that's unfortunate. Instagram's a bunch of snowflakes. Hopefully they don't take me down anytime soon.
You keep stirring these pots, they might. Look out. Instagram police is on it.
Yikes, man, I might be next. But I definitely wanted to talk about your next fight. You're fighting on LFA 103. Were you kind of disappointed that you didn't fight on the LFA's 100th event?
I wasn't. They did ask me to fight, and I think at that time my coaches were like, hey, we need to reel it back a little bit. I'm very jump the gun always, I'm like, yes, let's go. And my coaches were like, listen, it's okay. Just take a little bit of time. So, yes, I was so excited for that event, though. They had so many, new up-and-comers coming through. And, the cool part about LFA is, when you watch LFA, you already know, these are the rising stars, So you have to keep your eyes peeled on these cards.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And there's, a lot of, UFC caliber, with double champion Casey Kenny, you went on to the UFC. Who are some of your favorite fighters to watch in the UFC that came from LFA?
Man, Valentina Shevchenko, absolutely a killer. Mm-hmm. Henry Cejudo used to fight for the LFA as well. And it's a lot of the people who you see who are the superstars, they did come from LFA. I think about 70% of the LFA roster goes to the UFC, or vice versa. 70% of the UFC roster had gone through LFA at some point. But it's it's absolutely insane, So yeah, but Shevchenko for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would have to agree.
She was the champ in the LFA, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Huh. I'm not sure actually. I knew Valentina fought in the LFA, but I didn't know she was a champion in the organization. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's look up that info before you go quoting me. But I think she was. Not for sure though.
Gotcha. And talking about your next fight, you're facing off against 5-2 Cynthia Arceo. Watching the fight tape and just watching the tape, is there anything that you pick apart about her, and what do you think of her as an opponent going forward?
Yeah, she's a great opponent. She's 5-2. Her record shows it. She used to be the King of the Cage champion, so it makes sense. She's stylistically, I think she prefers karate. So she's more of a stand-up fighter, and as you guys have seen, that's something that I've always had trouble with in the past. So yeah, it's a good fight stylistically.
Gotcha. And you had a very eventful 2020. Like I said, you got the belts, you got the strawweight belt around your shoulder. Mm-hmm. You got the submission of the year, I believe, for LFA. Mm-hmm. And then you went on to have I believe you took the Contender Series fight on 2 weeks notice. Then you had another Fight of the Year candidate. How would you rate your 2020?
I would say 2020 was kind of amazing. Yes. Even through the quarantine. And like, honestly, that's like the biggest thing. You know, they always say like, stay ready. You never know what opportunity is going to be right around the corner. And you do. Like, that's not a joke. Like, you always have to stay prepared, you know, for what the next best thing could come. And 2020 ended up to be like the best year I could have asked for, you know, and I stayed faithful to my own goals, even when the whole world shut down, because I live in Los Angeles. So like, it's not like the gyms were actually open. I really didn't have anywhere to train. You know, I was really actually training in my living room for a championship fight. You know, like it's absolutely insane, but it was really cool. Yeah, what a freaking experience, man. Yeah.
What's the best part about living in Los Angeles?
The best part is the beaches. I swear.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yes, I'm in love with the beaches, man. Like, I'm always at the beach as much as I can be in between trainings. So that's definitely the best part.
Definitely. Like, what do you like to do? Like, are you like a good surfer, or like what's your talents over there?
I like to read, to be honest. Yeah, like I've tried surfing a few times and it's not my forte. I used to love skateboarding. Like, I'd go down to Huntington and like just like skateboard up and down the path there. Yeah. I was a skater chick growing up. So like, I started off in skateboarding, and then I went to pole dancing, and then I went to fighting.
Nice. And you know, speaking of your schedule, you know, 2021's a big year. You know, you have a fight, you know, coming up. I think next week, or actually 2 weeks ahead, I believe. What does your schedule look like for 2021? Like, how many fights would you like to have this year?
Oh, give me 4 or 5 fights, man. Like, I'm super game. You know, like, I'm about this life. Like, I live in the gym every day. I don't have like quote unquote fight camps. Like, I'm always training. I'm always in camp. But it's more of a difference of like, am I cutting weight or not? You know, so I stay ready. I stay close to my fight weight, and I'm absolutely prepared to take whatever challenges come my way this year.
Mm-hmm. And do you think LFA, like a title fight, you know, for you to become a 2-time champ, do you think that might be something that you might consider going forward?
I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, right now I'm simply focused on this next fight, absolutely locked in. And then, honestly, I'd like to just go into the UFC, you know, like, I've already won the belt. That was like the big thing for me. And, I'd like to just like step up my level, you know, and go on to the next opportunities, because I do want to be the UFC champion. So hitting that roster would be a part of that journey.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, speaking of the UFC roster too, they have a very awesome title fight between Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili. What do you think about that fight, and who do you think you have winning?
Woo. Well, the big thing here is that like, Weili is extremely strong, you know, and she's super game. She's very well-rounded now versus when she first hit the UFC. And Rose, I mean, Rose is more of a striker, you know, so stylistically, I feel like Rose can outpoint Weili. But we've also seen what happens when Rose gets hit with some super power, and she's fucking game, you know, like, she's in that bitch.
Yeah.
But I think that Weili is on another level with her power right now. And I think that's going to be a huge problem for anybody in the division, really, because a lot of the girls who were super tough that could have handled Weili have moved up to 25. You know, so I feel like all of the girls that are at 15, you know, like Carla's extremely tough and durable. Rose is very durable, but, you know, she does get overwhelmed with power. So I'm excited to see this fight. This is going to be a really good matchup.
Mm-hmm. And International Women's Day was a couple days ago. Who's your like go-to woman? Like, who's some of your like inspirations, I guess?
Whew. You know what? I'm really sorry to say this, but I gotta be honest. I don't really look up to people a lot. I see like little things and traits in different people where I'm like, man, like, you know, I really applaud that and I really look up to that. But I can't like pinpoint a person. So.
Gotcha. And I know that you've been training at I can't really pronounce it. Saikson, right? Is it
Saikson? Yeah, Saikson Muay Thai.
Yeah. So like with that, are you still training at Black House MMA, or have you kind of like drifted away from that?
No, Black House is my represent Black House MMA. Yeah, and I'm at Black House like 3-4 times a week, you know, and I'm there on the weekends too, and that's like my place, you know. Kenny Johnson is there, all of my teammates are there. Like, this is like, that's my home, you know. Like, I moved here from Cleveland, Ohio to train at Black House MMA, so that's still a very major part, and that's who I represent as a team and as a gym.
Mm-hmm. And have you been training with Miguel Jacob? I know he has a LFA fight coming soon as well. Have you been training with him, and how has camp been for him?
I have not been training with him. So, you know, a lot of us, like, Black House is like the major hub, and then like we all kind of like seek other gyms to do our specialties at. So he and I haven't really trained together much this particular camp. But
Gotcha.
I did see him the other day, and he's looking in shape, so that's a plus.
Yeah, like I saw him on the UFC Embedded. I think like they came to Black House for Kelvin Gastelum's camp, and then he had the MMA Island T-shirt. It was like really cool to see that. Yeah. So, who's the hardest worker at Black House?
Me.
Okay, who's the second hardest worker at Black House?
I'm sorry, there was like no hesitation in that, right?
I like that.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's like a lot. I mean, if you're in that room, you're working hard. You know, Kenny Johnson has us doing anywhere from, you know, 200 to 500 sprawls every day, you know, and then on top of like 200 shots, you know, and then like, and that's at the end of practice after we're done doing like 18 rounds of wrestling, you know, like there is no wink links when it comes to Black House. Everyone in that bitch is there to fucking work. Like, period. Like, you don't walk in there. Like, if you walk in there and you're not in there to work, people like myself will literally walk up and kick you while you're fucking slacking. So everyone in there works, you know?
Mm-hmm. And, you know, just going back to your fight on the Contender Series against Corey McKenna, you know, I believe in the third round you did like I don't know gymnastics, but you did like a somersault kind of kick or something like that. Is that something that you were working on prior to the fight, or did you just go like, F it, you know, I'm going to go for it?
No, I actually do that kick, like, quite often in training. So it wasn't something that I'm just like, fuck it, let's just like do some cartwheels. Like, no, like I do that kick, and it was a kick, you know, it was a cartwheel kick, and yeah, I do. That's the thing. Like, I do like a lot of crazy shit all the time. Like, when it comes to jujitsu, when it comes to striking, like, it's hard to train for someone like me because I do different things. I try things, you know. I come from a different background of athletics. I didn't come from like a traditional martial art. Like, I came from pole dancing. You know, I came from this gymnastics-based dance of life or death situations, you know, death-defying, gravity-defying tricks. So it's like, when I'm in the cage, like, I have a lot of confidence in my body, in my positional awareness, you know, and my functionalities, that I feel like I can do certain things, and I do them. You know, that's how I got submission of the year. Nobody has ever pulled off a submission where they are completely in a leg entanglement and then goes for a triangle. Like, it just doesn't happen, you know, like, and I mean, that I'm okay with like being that confident about it, because like, that's who I am every day in the gym when I'm training. This isn't new, you know, it's like, I just get to put it on display when I'm in the cage.
And like with your style too, I don't think you've ever been in a boring fight. You know, you always come to fight, and you know, with those kicks, especially, like, you know, you have a very exciting fighting style. But if you had to compare your style to somebody else's, like Showtime Pettis, like, is there anybody that comes to mind?
Yeesh. I'm honored to be, you know, amongst them for sure. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm up there with the best of them, you know, stylistically, to be honest. I mean, I like when they were doing the whole like submission of the year thing, and like certain different people and pages were like posting me alongside different UFC fighters that I was up under contention for. I think you guys are one of those pages. You know? So it's like, like, amazing, you know, and fuck, like, no, you're, like, I don't do boring shit, you know, like, if you're watching my fight, like, that's one thing, man. I've heard people talk shit about female MMA fights and how they can be boring and how, like, you know, girls are trying just to play to win. I don't play that game of, like, points. Like, I play for death. Like, I'm in that bitch to fucking give it my all, you know, so, yeah, thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. And I think one thing I see in MMA, it's like everybody like focuses on the UFC and they don't like hone in on, I guess, the other promotions, like the smaller promotions like LFA, Bellator, One. Why do you think that is? You know, like I know UFC is kind of like a monopoly, but at the end of the day, UFC isn't the sport. You know, it's just the biggest promotion. So why do you think people tend not to like watch the smaller promotions?
You know what? It's kind of like people, when it comes to another sport, let's put it in comparison with football, you know, and people who watch college football versus, you know, the big pro leagues, like, everyone in the middle just kind of gets lost in the sauce, you know, like, they like watching the college leagues because those are the up-and-comers. Like, those are the guys who are really trying to make it. And that's what we are here at the LFA, and I know Cage Warriors is another one of those leagues, you know, where people who are in those organizations, they're grinding to make it to the big leagues, like One Championship, UFC, and, you know, the upper leagues of Bellator, because I feel like Bellator kind of has leagues, you know? They have, like, their beginner league, and then they have, like, their rising, like, their star leagues. So, you know, I don't think that there's enough output as to the smaller organizations. Like, people know to watch college football, you know, but I don't think people know to watch the LFA. I don't think people know to watch Cage Warriors, you know?
Gotcha. And I guess going off that, like, besides yourself, of course, who do you think's the best fighter outside the UFC? You know, you have Mighty Mouse, you have Juan Archuleta, you have Douglas Lima, you have your Vanessa Demopoulos, who's a great fighter as well.
Gary Tonin.
Who would you put in that conversation?
I think Gary Tonin is in that conversation. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, yeah, if you don't know who Gary Tonin is, he's one of the best grapplers in the world. Everybody knows who Gordon Ryan is, but Gary Tonin taught Gordon Ryan, you know, and then all of them started going out to New York together, you know, to meet John Danaher, and then they became the Squad. And he's an MMA, and he fights for One Championship. And I think Gary has finished all of his fights, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he's 6-0 right now. He's on the rise to become one of the champions of One Championship. Yeah, that's the guy to be watching. Like, Gary is the next big deal, you know? He's already a big deal, but he's the next big deal. And if you like looking at butts and stuff, like, just go follow him on Instagram, because that's all he posts.
Yeah, I think, like, one of the reasons that he went so viral, too, like, because he looks just like Wolverine, like, from the X-Men, and, like, he always dresses up as Wolverine.
Yeah,
I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And one last question I had for you, what's going to be your walkout song for this next fight?
You know what? I don't know, but I'm thinking of, I think it's called, like, Crystallization by Lindsey Sterling. Man, that's
yeah, I've heard that one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, I think that song, and I know, like, it's just instrumentals, but, like, that shit gets me super lit. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I love Lindsey Sterling.
Yeah.
And I think it's all the questions I had. I just want to thank you again, Vanessa, for the time today. Is there anything that you want to say to the fans out there watching?
Yeah, I love you guys. That's what I want to say to everybody. Like, honestly, from the heart, that shit's real. Like, I'm so sad that my social media got taken away, because I feel like one of the biggest things for me was to be able to interact with my fans, you know? And, like, now I feel a little bit closed off from the world, which is actually kind of a positive thing, you know, because it took everything away and it really made me focus on the things that were important. Not that I wasn't before, but you can get caught up in the hype. So, and I have a question for you. What's your biggest news happening right now that you're most excited about?
Like, just news in general?
Yes.
Man, that's a tough one. There's been a lot of good news stories out there. Man, I just want to. This is even news about. I want to see I want to see that girl back in the cage again. I honestly might ask her to prom. I think I'm gonna ask her to prom.
When is she supposed to go? When is she supposed to fight again?
So like she wants to. I believe she doesn't want to fight until fans are back. But you know, with UFC fans being possibly being back in Texas in my home state, I think that would be a golden opportunity for the UFC to come back. So I think my biggest story that I'm looking forward to is UFC in Texas.
Okay, yeah, me too. That'd be dope. Are they talking about doing that?
Yeah. So I believe Dallas said no, but UFC Texas is like full capacity over here with the taking away the mask mandates and all of that stuff. So I think they might go to Houston, I believe.
Oh, fudge. That would be amazing. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. I think I've heard some whispers that Dana was talking about doing that. So,
Yeah,
heck yeah, man.
and speaking about like destinations, like one last question, like what would be your dream destination for a fight? Like what venue, what location would you like to fight at?
I've always wanted to fight in Singapore. Yeah.
Singapore?
Yeah, and like I know that one championship goes over there a lot, so like, but man, Singapore is like that's like one of like my go-to places for sure. Like I'm gonna go to Singapore at some point, you know? Yeah, and I mean, of course, if I could fight in Santorini, like yes and yes and totally yes. But yeah, definitely, I've always wanted to go to Singapore.
Santorini's in Greece, I believe, right?
I am Greek, so.
Nice. Well, thanks, Vanessa, so much. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much, man.